Hello, this is Faith at Catholic Unschooling Coach, and in this video I'm going to combine the last two ways that I channeled anxiety about unschooling and not relying exclusively on curriculum. And these had to do with taking care of myself. Now, motherhood is wonderful, but it's also wearing, and it really tests your mettle, and it's exhausting at times, and it can be very frustrating at times. It can be disappointing. It can really take a toll, and if you don't want to get it's good to be a martyr, right? But you don't want to get a martyr syndrome where you're just doing everything for your kids and you're not taking care of yourself. Because one thing is that you model how to live well to your children. So if you are still taking care of yourself, if you are taking care of your physical health, if they see you constantly trying to study more about the faith, if they see you trying to be someone who's involved in helping the least among us, if they see you reading and trying to broaden your own education or develop your own talents and your own passions, that's a good thing for them to see. And you're modeling for them how to learn, how to be a lifelong learner, how to live a balanced life. And so if you let yourself get too overwhelmed by motherhood, especially when you put homeschool on top of it and you're trying to do this school at home thing where you're perfect, that can be really, really, so many women burn out. So many women burn out and they don't keep going. I said in another video that I was in this co-op with 3 lovely, lovely, faithful Catholic women, and they just burnt out and they wound up not homeschooling. Now, I think homeschooling is a vocation, basically. So maybe they just weren't called to it for more than a few years. But I do think they also burned themselves out because they had this idea that they had to be perfect in everything. And it's not a competition. It's not a competition. And you can't, you have to be realistic and roll with the punches and just, this is where I think having a deep faith life where you see unschooling as really the Holy Spirit moving in your life, if you can look at it that way, that unschooling is how God designed children to learn. I'm talking about a Christian or Catholic unschooling. That's how God designed children to learn, and you are cooperating with that. And by cooperating with that, you're cooperating with God's will, right? And so the Holy Spirit is going to move through your family and make it all work out. So you have to have that level of trust. So be the most interesting person you can be. St. Jerome said the glory of God is man fully alive, right? So be fully alive. Pursue interests, read interesting books, read a lot about parenting and education and homemaking and all that stuff, because if that's where you are, that's the groove where you are. If you're trying to balance a career as well, you might not have time to do that much reading, but there are, articles you can read. I went through a period where I just read magazine articles because I couldn't finish a book. I was too tired. And I was reading out loud to my kids, so it wasn't like I wasn't reading at all. But to get that adult level of reading, I resorted to magazines because they were shorter articles. You can read a meaty article, and it might take you a couple of days if you're really exhausted because you're breastfeeding and you're up all night and all that stuff. But still, it's food for you, right? It's food for your mind. It's something that connects you with society and the bigger outside life, outside your home, and the sticky crumbs on the kitchen table and the dirty diapers and all that kind of stuff. So I just encourage anybody who's unschooling, don't do it to a selfish degree, but but try to be the most interesting person you can be. Follow those interests, those talents, those passions for yourself as well. Try to carve out a little bit of time and then live out loud so that your kids will appreciate and understand what it is to be a well-balanced adult. So that would be number 7, I think. So that would be just, the glory of God. And you glorify God by doing that, right? So the glory of God is man fully alive. And the last thing, and it's really funny that I'm even talking about this one, because but what happened was, once I stopped being so focused on curriculum and trying to get my kids reading and all that anxiety, and I felt that in waves, like it was an initial thing, and then when my kids started to get ready for high school, I felt it again. But once I relaxed, I could focus a little bit more on my house. And like I've said many times, I am really ADD, and it really comes out in just the chaos that I can generate in my own house. I'm just really bad. And so I've spent my life trying to find systems that might work and that sort of thing. And at some points, it was all too much because I had 5 kids. I mean, in 11 years. So I know that's not as close as some people or as many as some people. But for me, I was really overwhelmed. And my husband worked and traveled a lot. So a lot of times I was single mothering it. And I'm an introvert, so it was hard to be at home with my kids all day long. That really took a toll. By the end of the day, I was just frazzled. And then I just, there were some times where it was just so overwhelming, there was no way I could get out from under it. But here's the thing, I read this article somewhere, or a blog post or something, and this homeschooling mom, the title of it I remember was The Temporal Nature of Mess. Messes can get cleaned up. They really can. Sometimes you have to stop everything and spend a day or 2 or more cleaning up. Or sometimes, it's a mess that's grating on your nerves for days, and then finally you get a free 45 minutes and you can tackle it. It's just, but it is temporal, and that made me feel better, because it's always a work in progress, right? You're always in process because you have people living at home all the time. People generating messes all the time. And so it's, like they say, it's like snow shoveling in a blizzard. I mean, that's what it's like, but you have to do it because otherwise the snow is going to pile up too high, right? So you have to keep going. So I, some of the things that helped me, and I was really bad, so it really is laughable that I'm even saying this, but I was able to focus on it more, and I felt more in control, right? I came to be at peace with certain aspects of it. And it was by unschooling, by relaxing, that I was actually able to feel a little more competent in that area. So some of the things that worked for me is I would make my bed every morning. That's the one consistent thing that I do. I make my bed every morning. The rest of the house could look like a tornado went through it, but my bed would be clear. My bed would be the one little oasis of peace in the whole house. And so that was one thing I did, and I established that habit really early on. The other thing I did when I had little kids is a couple of times a day, anywhere from 1 to 3 times a day, I would put on a timer, and we would just run around and clean up. And the little ones would be my helpers or my runners, and they would just put stuff away. Put these toys away, or this book is here, go put it back in the bookshelf, or whatever, this dish is here, go put it in the sink, that sort of stuff. And then the older kids would have particular assigned jobs, like this was just tidying basically. Like my daughter was really good at cleaning off surfaces, so she would do that. She would tidy up the coffee table and get the counters decluttered for me. Other kids would, I'm trying to think of what my oldest son would, I know he turned into a very good dishwasher. Here's the thing, in spite of the fact that I was such a mess, now that my kids are adults, my oldest daughter is very neat. She lives in a tiny townhouse, and she has to keep everything neat, or else, if you don't keep it neat, it becomes too cluttered in, about 2 minutes. So she's extremely neat. She has a place for everything, and, she's, so, that's kind of amazing because she grew up in a chaotic household. My oldest son was sort of monk-like. Like he just didn't acquire any goods, and he would just have a few clothes and his guitar, and that was basically it, in his music books. And then he married a very neat, very artistic woman. So, they're surprisingly tidy. And then my youngest daughter, who was a mess because she was really into building little sets for her American Girl doll. She had her own YouTube channel, and she collected all kinds of recycling. I could never throw anything out or put anything in recycling because she wanted all the cardboard, and she would just make sets. She was incredibly creative. But her room was a mess. It was just a mess. But somehow, now, like, that's what she does when she has any excess energy. She burns it up by cleaning her room. And, a couple times a week I might go in there and there might be some clothes thrown around, or she didn't quite put the laundry away. But most of the time I go in there, it's really tidy. So she's become really tidy. The two kids who aren't are my 25-year-old son, who's really a tough case, and my son, my 21-year-old son, who he's not really that messy, but he's kind of like my oldest son. He just doesn't acquire things, really. He's kind of simple, but he doesn't bother putting anything away. Anyway, so what I'm saying is there is hope, because I know people who've come from families where they were super, super neat and they're a mess. So that's me. My mother ran our house. I grew up with 10 siblings. She ran our house like a Navy ship, like there were just certain rules, and everyone there was chore time, and you got to, she was really strict. And what happened to me? So anyway, I made my bed. I had tidy up times. People did have a couple of set chores, like they would come set the table. I would ask them to clear the table, especially after breakfast, because that's when we did our copy work. Before holidays, I have a thing where I want my house to be clean for holidays, so we would always dig in, and that would sort of be the project that we were going to get stuff clean. Right now, I just adopted my own little thing going on right now. Of course, now I'm 6 years old, and all my children are adults and everything. But I finally, after all these years, I've come up with a system that I kind of like. And it's kind of silly because I'm just taking the first letter of each day of the week. Well, not quite. But like on Mondays today, I try to work on my master bedroom and bathroom. And I don't always get it. If I don't get it, then I might move it to the next day. And I have to do at least 15 minutes. That's the rule in my head. And then on Tuesday is tidy day. So I just find an area in the house that's untidy and needs tidying, and I work on it. I dust, I vacuum, I put things away. And again, I have to do it at least 15 minutes. Then Wednesday is wash. I have to wash something, like not clothes, but wash a floor, scrub a bathroom, something like that. And then Thursday is actually it's when we put out our recycling and trash and compost, because I have a compost service. And so that's the day that I clean out the fridge. I feel like I've said this before. Did I already say this in a video before? And then on Fridays, it's Family Room Friday. So by the end of the week, the family room is a total mess, mostly because of the 4-year-old. And so I try to tidy all that up and vacuum it and get that in order. And then Saturday is like a project day. Like right now I'm working on really cleaning up my mudroom, which was just junk was just thrown in there. You could barely walk through it. It was really bad. So this past Saturday I worked on that, and then next Saturday I'm going to hopefully finish it. And then Sunday is supposed to be a day of rest, but that's when I go and buy food from a local farmer's market, and also when I try to plan menus for the week. So anyway, so housekeeping. So the two things that helped me reduce my anxiety were trying to glorify God with my life, by being in love with life, by being interested, by trying to study and get closer to Him, by living out loud to my kids, by being a joyful person, by trying to model how to learn and how to enjoy life and all that. And I don't know how well I did, but it was something that I wanted to do, And then the last thing was when I didn't have that pressure of curriculum and all that stuff bearing down on me, I have a deficit when it comes to housekeeping, and I could turn my attention to it and figure out how to keep things moving. You know, even in my very inept way, but at least I was trying, at least I was shoveling during the blizzard, and that was, that had to be good enough. And it turned out that it was good enough. It didn't, I don't think anyone's too damaged from it. So anyway, so that's me winding up my series of 8 things that I did to channel that anxiety and that curriculum fever into something that was a lot more constructive for my family. So I hope that you got something out of that, and I am going to post this on Wednesday. Now it's just Monday now. But anyway, I'll talk to you later. God bless. Bye-bye.